let this question support all of us in moving through this time in a loving and creative way. Hey everyone, we're here for another final episode of What Could Possibly Go Right, and a special treat. I am here with Amy Buringrud. She's the Communications and Marketing Director at Post-Carbon Institute and the behind-the-scenes architect of the outreach for What Could Possibly Go Right. Hey, Amy.
Hey, Vicki. Thanks so much for doing this. I am so excited to talk to you. But before we jump in, I don't think you've ever been introduced during the series, so I'm going to take the opportunity. Okay. I am talking to Vicki Robin. She is the author of Your Money or Your Life and Blessing the Hand That Feeds Us. She's an incredible community and environmental activist, a prolific speaker, and an inspirational social innovator, among many, many other things. And I have one more thing to say before we get started. As you know, you have been an inspiration to me for much longer than we've worked on this project, but I just want to share my appreciation for this opportunity to work with you. I have enjoyed every minute of it. And I want to say thank you from the Post-Carbon Institute, everyone at the Post-Carbon Institute. We are so grateful to have your time and your dedication and your creativity in bringing these episodes to life. We're just immensely grateful. Thank you.
Wow. Well, it just makes such a big difference to me to work with an enthusiastic team of people and to get together every week and be excited about what we're doing and dream and scheme. I think a lot of these, these shows, the podcasts, at the end they say, and we want to thank, and they do this list of names, and the people behind the scenes. And I know from what we've done together how much it really is the relationship of the people co-creating it that is the dynamism behind anything that works. So that's why I wanted you to do this with me because we have so much fun together.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
True. It'd be even more fun if we could be together in the same room, but. Yeah,
that doesn't, yeah, right. When the pandemic's over, in my next lifetime and maybe yours. Right. Yeah. So, I just wanted to ask you before we go any further, since you've been part of this, what are some of the highlights? We've done all the interviews now, they're all published. What are some of the highlights for you? What stands out for you, whether it's in particular or whether it's in general? What have you heard?
Yeah, well, I really liked this whole idea from the beginning. I was very excited to work on it because everything felt so heavy. I mean, of course, everything that's going on now that was going on when we dreamed this up, it was just, it was hard. It was very hard and heavy. And this opportunity to think about what positive next steps could come from this mess, that's a gift. So I came into it feeling very positive about the project, and I feel like it was better than I even had hoped. And what I mean by that is, I think there's like kind of two directions people can go. They go over the top optimism or they go doomer. And this was such a nice balance of realism and maybe not hope. I mean, that might be too strong of a word, but something similar to that. I feel like all your guests had kind of a common theme of offering us a realistic look at where we are and this sort of encouragement to do the difficult work for what needs to happen next. And maybe in that there's hope embedded. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's hard to choose specific moments. I mean, I feel like there were a bunch of them, and also, each guest brought some important element to the project. So, but I think, one that stands out for me is your conversation with Reverend Yearwood. That was incredible. I feel like he really got to the heart of how important this is right now, this racial justice reckoning that we find ourselves in, and that we just can't go back to how we were. It's like, I think he called it a heart scare, and you called it a health crisis, and that really made sense to me. You have a heart attack, you can't go back to how you were before. I mean, unless you want to just kick it. I don't know.
Right.
So that really spoke to me. And the conversation with Saru, I had no idea that the restaurant service or the food service industry had that direct connection to slavery. That was completely news to me. So yeah, I mean, that I had to really rethink my perspective on tipping. Never imagined that was anything beyond a show of gratitude. Yeah, but what about you, Vicki? What do you think?
Yeah.
Actually,
I love that you brought up Reverend Yearwood, because I think I'd like to jump in with my own what could possibly go right.
yes, actually, that's the question I want to ask you.
Yeah,
That's what we
exactly.
all want to know. What do you think
Think could
could
possibly go
possibly go
right.
right?
I think what could possibly go right is, like, if we just all wake up in the morning and listen to our better angels. I think, in a way, this whole process of the pandemic and the economic unraveling and the racial justice uprising, it's just pulled the rug out from certainty. And man, the whole point, one of the whole points of this repetitive narrative that we live inside of Western capitalist systems, is we're certain and we're going to be more certain, and stick with us, guys, because it's certain. So I think that there's been a humbling that's happened that's really crucial. Anyway, I got myself off topic right away. Yeah, back to Reverend Yearwood, and this sense that what I called it in that was like a moral moment. And as I look at what's happening, I guess it's someplace between an observation of an emergent property and a prayer that those of us in the sort of Western colonialist dominator mindset, mostly located in the United States, but not exclusively, that worldview that's spread around the planet, it's given us an opportunity to, as you say, put blinders on to basically the working class, blinders on to the services that are provided by nature and by other human beings that allow this whole Disneyland story to continue. It's almost like we're getting to see all of the footage on the cutting room floor. That we've had this beautiful movie presented to us, but there were all these scenes in which people suffered, all these scenes in which the fires happen. But don't worry about the fires, because they're not in the next scene. Don't worry about it. It's almost like we've been, the dominant narrative has been snipping out parts of the story so that we won't look at them. But this period of time has revealed to us the shadow of our bright light. And part of the shadow is the racial injustice. And for me, that work has been, and I think for many people, I think so many people I know are in the same, like, embarrassed awakening, like, how could I have missed that? How was it that all of these murders happened and I turned the page on them, and I turned the page on them, and I turned the page on them? We haven't, this word intersectionality has come to the fore in the last few years. And I think right now in this moral moment, we're recognizing that all of these, the women's movement and feminism and environmentalism, climate and racial justice and the Poor People's Campaign, it's almost like these streams have been coming down. Let's, imagine in a, like in the layout of Washington, D.C., that, we've been marching down all of these avenues, and we're finding ourselves finally in this mass movement of awakening to the wrongness of what's going on and the lateness of the hour. So, and with the racial justice work, my shock at my own ignorance, my own bubble, my own living in a white world and not even noticing it, has taken blinders off. And now I'm seeing more. It's not just about my own unconscious racism and the white privilege and that I've enjoyed, but the blinders are coming off about many other things. It's like I had a narrow channel, and now it's widening, and I see that happening. So there is a sobriety that's available now. It's, when I'm talking about all these movements coming together, it feels like this is the moment that's available to us. I'm not sure that we're going to collectively actually get there, but it's a moment that's available of that hitting bottom in an addiction. It's like seeing finally coming face to face with the consequences of your actions, looking in the eyes of the pain that you've caused in such a way that it touches not just your mind, not just your, like, where shall I live? Your doingness, not your strategies. It touches your heart. You realize, I have been out of alignment with the moral truth that, the golden rule of no man is an island. I've allowed myself to enter into a story of exceptionalism, a story of an impervious story, an individualistic story that I can separate from the rest. So these are the things that I think of when I think of morality. And I joke that I'm a morality junkie, and that it's not a word. These ideas of repentance and reparations and restitution, these moral words are not words that come easily off the lips of most people I know. People like to talk about spirituality or trauma. They talk about that inner, many important things. But for me, because morality also comes out of being a congregation, it's like until we understand that there's some higher value, some higher source or deeper source, whether it's Gaia or whether it's, God, or whether it's the universe, there's something that is a harmonious whole that out of which our lives come and that we have a duty towards. And if we don't get that, if this is just a technical solution, I'm not sure all the pain has been really worth it. It's like I see in individual lives, you see somebody who's messing up their life, but they're just dodging bullets. And then something happens, like their wife leaves them, and it's that time when everything they've done in life puts them in that moment where they could make a different choice. And then they go like, I didn't love her anyway. On they go into the next. So that's the thing about it. I feel like it's a moral moment. It's a moment of sobriety. And it's a moment of humility, of the recognizing that for all our cleverness, there's our cleverness fits on the head of a pin, and our ignorance is vast. And I think also the sense of social solidarity, that the virus is very just. It's just it's making us realize that we are in something together, and it's only if we are addressing it together that we're going to get through it. I think I've lived in an inconsequent. I think the boomers are sort of quintessentially inconsequential generation. It's like we were born into an expanding economy, and pretty much we've had a silver spoon in our mouths. And I know that many people have not. But in terms of the piece of that we have by and large lived in. And we didn't live through something where everybody did it together. We didn't live through the Second World War. We didn't live through the Depression. So this is the moment when we're realizing that we're all in this together. And if that sense of social solidarity can start to produce policies and candidates, I also think, speaking about policies and candidates, I think this is a time when I think Heather Cox Richardson said this, is that politics is not a spectator sport. I think this is the time when we're realizing that if we're going to pony up energy to make things better, whatever better means, we don't know what better means, but if we're going to pony up the energy, it's going to have to, politics is the space where we come together to make decisions about our collective future. And we've sort of gone on automatic with that. So it's a time of solidarity. It's a time of realizing that we don't go to the doctor. The doctor is part of a healthcare system. You know, it's like we don't realize that we're living in systems that have been slowly over time withered in our complacency over, you know, how good we are and we're the best, et cetera. So the food system is not as secure as we thought. The supply chains are not as secure as we thought. The healthcare system is not as, you know, even the postal system is, you know, the systems that we have depended on for our lives and the essential workers who staff those systems. Now we see that we're not going to be able to hold it together as a civilization without those. So all of this for me comes together under this sense of an awakening. It's like, and I call it a moral awakening because it's an awakening that isn't into bright, shiny, you know, sparkles and unicorns and rainbows. It's a sober awakening to the consequences of our actions, and whatever position we've had on the game board as these consequences have built, it's ours. This is our crisis. This is our crisis. Mm-hmm. We've all done it. We've done it together, you know, and pointing fingers and blaming one another. We can engage in that, but this is a moment of reckoning, and I guess that's what makes me excited. That's what could go right, is that we could actually do the reckoning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. As you were explaining, I was thinking about your conversation with Severin, and I think, you know, her reference to, you know, the native wisdom that we have sort of abandoned. And I think about the way you see the world is similar. And I wonder if, you know, I know we don't like to predict, and I know we're not creating a vision, but with this awakening, do you have a sense of where the change will happen? Is it systems? Is it internal? Is it coming together? Is it all of it? Do you see the next step?
You know, I have blinders a mile wide and a mile deep. Okay, but so one of my reference points, of course, is having worked in the area of money and personal finance for so many years, and watching people struggle with investing their lives in work that makes no sense to them, for money to be able to meet their needs. You know, the economy is sort of like 1,000 brass rings, but you know, you might be on the pony where you can't get them. So it's I feel a bubbling up about a just economy, and because, you know, humans have needs. We need food, we need water, we need shelter. When our needs are not met, that's when things, you know, that's when, whether it's revolutions or die off, I mean, that's when bad stuff happens, is when people don't get their needs met. And we're in a story of insufficiency where because we're hyper individualistic, because we don't feel that the systems are on our side, and perhaps we've lost faith in the larger system called the divine, or the universe, or the earth. We're all of us are feeling sort of hung out to dry. So we're living in a sense of not having enough. And even people who have more than enough, and more than enough, and more than enough, don't feel like they have enough. Whether you attribute that to trauma or childhood or whatever you attribute it to, there is this immense sense of insufficiency on a planet where there's enough. Yeah. So that is a major design flaw. And I think there are many people looking at forms of businesses. How do you run a business where profit isn't the profit isn't the only thing? Well, wait a second. Most businesses have been run that way. That's historically. It's not about shareholder value. It's about exchange in communities. So there's the idea of relocalization, the idea of universal basic income. And, from a libertarian point of view, that seems like totally unfair. I worked for my money. I get it. You slob, you didn't work, you don't get it. But the fact of the matter is that it's a citizen dividend from being part of a productive economic system. So whether it's taxation, whether it's universal basic income, whether it's cooperatives, whether it's different forms of money, whether it's local investing, whether it's tithing, whether it's, I feel that there is a drive in people now to reconcile their personal finances with the ecological and social conditions in this world. There's a drive to find another way. We're done adapting to, I guess this is what we got, so we're going to have to just be good little capitalists and make our little paychecks, and it's not like it's going to happen overnight, but I think that I feel a drive to find new systems of defining what we need, how we fulfill our needs, who we are to one another. All of these are in economics. You could put it over to spirituality, but I think, it comes down to how we meet our needs, and that there are other ways to do that than participating in, just, it's like our value to the community is not the same as the jobs we do. I think that transformation may be more available now. And because, right now we're looking at a turning off of the faucet from the government of the extended $600 a week. We're looking at people not being able to pay their rent, losing their homes. We're looking at an economic devastation that starts to smell like the what we have heard of the Great Depression. And when so many people are being thrown out of a system, it's going to be like people are going to figure out other ways to meet their needs. So it's not exactly a rosy picture. I came back to something pretty dark, but I think we're going to be seeing innovations there because it's so basic. Mm-hmm. It's so basic. I think the sense of solidarity is going to be undergirded by it's going to be a crazy time up to the election, but it's just like what's happening in Portland right now. And I know this locates it in a particular time, but watching that and thinking, man, that is like, there's got to be some peacekeepers. And then suddenly the moms show up, it's like the moms show up to protect the people from the federal agents. So I think we're going to see a lot more people discovering themselves as participants in history. And every time you participate, like I went to Standing Rock when I had an opportunity, and participating there changed me. It wasn't that I did much by being there. I was just another body. But by being there, I became part of something. And by becoming part of something, I was a different person, and I was a more committed person, and I was more intelligent, and I could see further, and I could see more. So I think participation in this election is going to be really transformative in the United States. I know I've got my US blinkers on. Those are some thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that idea of participating, changing you. I agree completely. That's beautiful. Thank you, Vicki. So,
Yeah. So
what is next? What can we expect?
right. I don't know, Amy. I don't think I talked about the question per se. The question was just sort of like a toss-off question. We started, as Cher said, okay, well, Cher Miller is the head of is the executive director of Post-Carbon Institute. And he said, well, okay, fine. We'll just, we'll ask everybody the same question. I go like, yeah, here's a question. But this question is so interesting because it's an evolutionary question. It asks you to pay attention, not to what you priorly thought or what your predictions are or what your theories are or your team or your tribe. It just asks you to take a look at what's actually emerging. And with a sense of expectancy that there could be something about how you participate with what's arising that could yield something beautiful, something interesting, something beneficial to others, beneficial to yourself, some creative act, some little animal, it's this feeling, it's like a feeling of expectancy. It's like there's a gift in every moment. And what could possibly go right is sort of like the gift underneath the tree in Christmas. It's like, what could be inside this package? And I know it has embedded in it a little bit more optimism than it's easy to feel at this time, because so much seems to be going wrong, or going in the wrong direction, or threatening to our way of life and people that we love, or our income. I mean, there is so much threat to life and limb, income, well-being in this moment, that it almost seems impertinent to ask what could possibly go right. It's like, don't you understand the severity of the situation, Vicki? What do you mean? But I think it actually directs attention to something that is call it evolution, because you keep participating with what is, rather than ceding territory and going like, well, I've already figured out what's going on, and I figured out what I want and what I don't want, and I've already figured out my strategy, so there you are, which is an uncreative. I love the question because it's so creative. And I thought, well, maybe it was just a question about the pandemic. And then, oh my God, then we had the racial justice, uprising. I mean, that surprised us all with the fact that so many white people were showing up for this one. Finally, it's like, I saw an interview with Van Jones, and he cried at the end. He said, after all this time, a Black man was murdered and white people cared. It's like, how? So that happened. And so what could possibly go right from that? And then we're going to have, like, I really think that this summer, as the relief package, there's what could go right with the level of polarization in this country. I mean, there's so many, it's like we're going to have event after event after event after event coming at us, for which the question, what could possibly go right, is useful in directing attention. Because
Absolutely.
even if things go terribly wrong, we're still in an evolutionary process. Something is always coming. And I think it reflects my personality too. You know, it's just, I have that sort of possibility personality. But I love the question, and I would love to keep asking that question of people who you and I, and also people who've enjoyed this series, you know, like I'd love to not just interview the people that occur to me, but interview people that occur to other people. Like, we want to hear so and so say something about that question. Maybe, you know, have 2 or 3 people, you know, host a dialogue, you know, just like let this question support all of us in moving through this time in a loving and creative way. So however that manifests, who knows? But that's what I'd love to have happen. So.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, because I would love to keep hearing what people have to say. And I'm so grateful for you, Vicki, and for everything that you have given us. I look forward to more questions like this. I thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you, Amy. Absolutely, positively could not. Actually, literally, because when I proposed this to a share, and he sort of brought it to the team, like, oh God, another something. And Amy says, I'm doing it. I'm on it. So yeah, it's let's do it. Whatever it is, let's do it. Okay, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We did it.
Thank you, Vicki.